Let me tell you a bit about us. My name's Eleanor, and I've been married to Thomas for many years. We've got 2 kids, Ava, our oldest, and James, the youngest. Living with us, you'd see right away how different the air is between them. I was a stay-at-home mom, see, 'cause Thomas did alright by us, made enough so I could focus on the kids. Mom, where's my blue notebook? I swear I left it right here. Ava would shout down from her room, always losing things, but managing to keep her life more organized than a planner. Check under your bed. I'd yell back, knowing her room like the back of my hand. Ava, she was sharp as a tack, went off to college on a scholarship and never looked back. Didn't cost us a dime for her schooling. Now James, that boy was another story. Thomas, God bless him, loved that boy a bit too much. Favored him, you know? Always in his corner, even when he messed up, which was more often than not. James, you need to take life a bit more seriously, I remember telling him one evening at dinner. He just rolled his eyes, fork halfway to his mouth. Come on, Eleanor, the boy will find his way. He's young. Let him have some fun. Thomas chimed in, always the peacemaker. Mom, Dad's right. I'm just trying to figure things out, James would say, trying to sound calm, but I could hear the irritation there, clear as day. He was good at making you feel like you were the one seeing things wrong. Ava was different. When she moved out, got her job, and started her life, she never asked for a penny. Proud of her, I was. I made sure to budget, Mom. I don't want to be a bother. She'd tell me over the phone, and my heart would swell with pride. Meanwhile, James seemed to think our pockets were as deep as the ocean. Hey, can I get some cash? Going out with the guys, he'd drop casually, like he was talking about the weather. It's not a bank, James. What happened to the job hunt? I'd press, trying not to let the frustration bleed through. Jobs suck, Mom. I'm still looking for the right fit, he'd grumble, always with an excuse. Thomas and I would go back and forth about it. He's just lost, Eleanor. He'll settle down, he'd assure me, but the worry lines etched deeper with each passing day. I'd sit there, coffee in hand, morning light streaming through the window, wondering where we went wrong. Was it too much love? Not enough tough love? James had set his sights on a prestigious college right out of high school, a place in a neighboring city known for its academic rigor. The fact that the college was expensive seemed to bother him less than it should. Thomas and I were roped into paying not just for his tuition, but also for a rented apartment where he could stay while attending classes. It was a big financial strain, but Thomas believed it was all worth it for our son's future. My studies are going great, James would assure us over the phone, his voice always upbeat. You guys don't need to worry about a thing, he'd add, and Thomas would nod, satisfied, passing on the latest cheerful update. But as months turned into a year and then another, the details were sparse. We got snippets of his life, a mention of a test here, a group project there, but never anything concrete. No grades, no reports, nothing that actually showed how he was doing. It started off like any other Tuesday. I was busy with the laundry, thinking about what to make for dinner, when something nagged at me, a mother's intuition, you might call it. James had been at the university for 2 years now, but we hardly got any updates. No report cards, no calls from professors, nothing. Just monthly calls asking for money. Thomas, don't you think it's odd? We never see any grades from James, I mentioned one evening while we were cleaning up after dinner. Thomas, always the optimist, just shrugged it off. He's probably just busy, Ellie. You know how college can be. The next morning, I drove down to the university. It was a nice place, all ivy-covered buildings, and young folks looking like they had their whole lives sorted out. I headed straight for the dean's office, to get the lowdown on how James was doing. Hi, I'm Eleanor, James Carter's mother. I'd like to hear about how he's doing, I said to the lady at the front desk. She typed something into her computer, frowned, and then typed some more. I'm sorry, Mrs. Carter, but it appears there's been a mistake. According to our records, James hasn't been enrolled here for the past 7 months. I felt like the floor dropped away from beneath me. What do you mean? Can you check again, please? She showed me the screen, and there it was in plain black and white. James had dropped out. Just like that. My heart was pounding as I thanked her and walked out, my mind racing all the way to James's apartment. When I got there, the place was a mess. Looked like the aftermath of a tornado. Beer cans, pizza boxes, clothes all over the place. And there, on the couch, was James, sleeping like a baby in the middle of the day. "James!" I shouted, louder than I intended. He jolted awake, all bleary-eyed and confused. "Mom? What are you doing here?" he mumbled, sitting up and rubbing his eyes. "I went to your college today. They told me you dropped out. Why didn't you tell us, James?" He looked away, then back at me. "I was gonna, I swear. Just, things got out of hand, and..." "Out of hand? James, we'd been sending you money every month. Your father works hard for that money. And here you are, throwing parties and lying to us?" He tried to say something, then stopped. His eyes couldn't meet mine. "I'm sorry, Mom. I messed up." I left his apartment with my heart heavy and my mind in turmoil. That night, I told Thomas everything. He was upset, more than I'd seen him in years, but he didn't want to give up on James. "We'll get him back on track," he said, always believing there was a way to fix things. 5 long years rolled by just like that, filled with the same old song and dance. Ava, my daughter, she's the type to grab life by the horns. Worked her fingers to the bone, climbed that career ladder fast and never looked back. Saved every penny she could with her fiancé, Mike, and when it came time for them to tie the knot, they did it all on their own. It was a beautiful, modest ceremony, just like Ava. No fuss, all class. Then there's James. Still out there, floating like a leaf in the wind, looking for himself, as Thomas likes to say. He hopped from one job to another, all thanks to Thomas's buddies giving him chances he never quite caught hold of. After Ava's wedding, which James attended with a bored look plastered across his face most of the time, he dropped a bombshell on us. He was getting married too, and oh, you should have seen the girl he brought home. Lisa, her name was, and she was as sharp as a marble. Selfish? Sure. But James was smitten, or so he claimed. I wasn't too keen on her, to be honest. "James, are you sure about this one?" I asked him one evening while we were cleaning up after dinner. "Mom, Lisa's great, you just gotta get to know her better," he shot back, all defensive like I was attacking him. And just like that, they planned a wedding that could have been mistaken for a royal affair. Of course, they expected Thomas to foot the bill, which he did without even batting an eye. "Thomas, can we talk?" I cornered him one evening after the plans were underway. "What's on your mind, Ellie?" he asked, though I could tell he already knew. "It's this wedding, Thomas. And everything else we keep paying for James. When is enough, enough?" I was nearly at my wit's end. "He's our son, Ellie. We can't just cut him off," Thomas sighed, running his hands through his hair. "I know he's our son, but look at Ava. She never asked for a dime. Worked for everything she has. Doesn't that tell you something?" I could feel my voice rising, frustration boiling over. "Eleanor, we've been over this. James is different. He needs more help," he said, his tone final, leaving no room for arguments. And so, the wedding happened. It was as grand as they come, leaving Thomas and me with a lighter wallet and me with a heavier heart. No sooner had the wedding bell stopped ringing than James was asking for more, this time an apartment and a monthly allowance to boot. "Can you believe that? After all we've done already?" I vented to Thomas one night. "He's trying to start a new life with Lisa. They need our support," Thomas tried to justify, always the peacemaker. "Support, Thomas? It's like we're funding a never-ending party for him," I snapped, unable to hold back my dismay. Despite my protests, Thomas went ahead and bought them an apartment. The monthly check started flowing soon after. Every time I signed one of those checks, a part of me wilted. I loved my son, God knows I do, but this was getting to be too much. Ava managed. Why can't he? I muttered under my breath every time I sealed an envelope. Life trudged on like this, me simmering with every check, every call for more money. Thomas and I had more than a few rounds about it. He'll settle down, Ellie, just you wait and see, he'd always say. But me? I wasn't too sure anymore. Something had to give, and I was beginning to worry it might be us. The day Thomas died was the day part of me died too. He was gone, just like that, a heart attack right in the middle of his workday. Nobody saw it coming. It hit me like a freight train, one minute he was there, the next, just a memory. I was shattered, barely holding the pieces together. Ava was my rock through it all. She took charge the way she always does, organizing the funeral, handling the calls, managing everything so I could just breathe. Or at least try to. I couldn't have gotten through those days without her. James? Well, he was another story. Showed up to his father's funeral looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Stood there with a face like he was waiting for a bus, not a tear in sight. And Lisa was right there beside him in a black dress that was anything but appropriate, eyes glued to her phone like it was just another day. The funeral was a blur, but I remember the weight of their stares, the whispers. It wasn't right. When everyone had left, the air thick with condolences and the scent of lilies, that's when James decided to stir up more trouble. Mom, we need to talk about Dad's property. I'm the heir. He always said so, James declared, his voice too loud for the somber mood of the house. I felt a rush of anger so fierce it nearly choked me. James, this is neither the time nor the place, I snapped, my voice cracking under the strain. Lisa piped up then, her tone sharp, well, it's not just about the money. We're thinking about moving in here. Take charge, you know? Before I knew it, she was walking around the living room, touching this, moving that, as if she owned the place already. Some of these old things will have to go, of course. I stood there, stunned, watching her parade around my home. Over my dead body, you will. This is my house. I finally burst out. Lisa laughed, a nasty, grating sound. Well, that's only temporary, isn't it? The room spun a little at her words. Ava stepped in then, her voice calm but firm. Let's all take a step back. We can sit down in a few days and discuss everything like adults. But James wouldn't have it. No, we need to sort this now. Dad would have wanted me to have it sorted quickly. Ava looked at me, her eyes full of worry, and I knew she was in this fight with me. But standing there, in the echo of my husband's last footsteps through our home, my energy was fading fast. Fine. We'll talk about it now if we must, I said, the room going quiet. I've decided I'm moving into a nursing home. Thomas and I had it picked out long ago. James whipped out his phone and pulled up the website of the nursing home. After scrolling for a bit, he looked up, shaking his head. This place is a money pit, Mom. You're not wasting your savings living there. You'll live with us in this house. His wife made a face like she'd just bitten into a lemon, but then smoothed it over with a phony smile. Of course, you can stay with us. I mean, you'll help around with cooking and cleaning, right? The words stung, but before I could react, Ava leaned in close and whispered something in my ear. Her words were a quiet bombshell, one I couldn't believe at first. But she was serious, her eyes telling me to just trust her. Taking a deep breath, I straightened up and addressed them all. Actually, I won't be needing any inheritance. Ava and I have made our plans. I'll stay with her for now. Ava nodded, adding firmly. And I don't want any part of the inheritance either. We'll go to the notary tomorrow to make it official. James and Lisa exchanged a quick, greedy glance before breaking into wide grins. Well, if that's what you want, Mom, James said, barely concealing his delight. Lisa practically skipped to the kitchen to pop open a bottle of champagne. While they were celebrating in the next room, I slipped away to pack my things, feeling a mix of relief and sorrow. Ava was right beside me, helping to fold clothes and pack up my life in quiet solidarity. The next morning, Ava and I went to the notary. James and Lisa were already there, looking smug. We signed all the necessary papers. James could barely contain his glee, thinking he had won the lottery. Back at Ava's place, her husband, Mike, had prepared a warm welcome. The table was set with a good lunch and tea, making me feel cherished and safe. Mike gave me a comforting hug. "Glad to have you here," he said, his smile genuine and warm. Living with Ava and Mike had been a balm to my worn spirit. Day by day, I found pieces of myself that had been lost in the chaos of grief and family drama. Ava was ever the caretaker, making sure I was comfortable, offering a listening ear, and just being there, something I hadn't realized I'd been missing so much. It was on a sunny Thursday morning, while I was enjoying a cup of coffee in the garden, that my phone rang. An unfamiliar number flashed on the screen, and I hesitated before answering. "Hello, Eleanor? This is Janet from Pine Grove Care Home." The voice was warm and professional. "I'm calling to inform you that your place here is ready for you." I furrowed my brow, confusion washing over me. "I think there's been a mistake. I didn't book a place at any care home." "Oh, no mistake, ma'am. Your husband, Thomas, arranged for 2 lifetime places here in your name. Since his place is now vacated, you also have an option to receive a refund. The amount would be $200,000. My hand trembled as I held the phone, tears welling up in my eyes. Thomas had always been thoughtful, but this? This was beyond anything I could have imagined. "Thank you," I managed to choke out, overwhelmed by his love even in his absence. I hung up and stared out at the garden, the flowers blooming with no care of the world's troubles, a stark contrast to the turmoil within me. Ava noticed my tears when she came out to join me. "Mom, what's wrong? Who was that on the phone?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. I wiped my eyes, looking up at her. "That was the nursing home. Your father, he had made arrangements for us before he died. There's enough money for me to decide what I want to do without worrying." Ava sat down next to me, taking my hand in hers. "That's amazing, Mom. But you know you don't have to go if you don't want to. You can stay here with us. We want you here." I squeezed her hand, grateful for her and Mike's generosity. "I know, darling. And I appreciate it more than words can say. But your father chose that place with care, thinking of our health and future. They have excellent medical facilities, and honestly, it might be the best place for me to be. I think he'd want me to use it." We spent the rest of the day looking into what Pine Grove had to offer. It was one of the best in the state, with top-notch care, beautiful grounds, and plenty of activities. It wasn't just a nursing home, it was a community where I could thrive, not just survive. "Looks like Dad really was thinking ahead," Ava remarked as we browsed through the photos of the facility online. "He always did, didn't he? Always making sure we were okay," I replied, a small smile creeping through the tears. We decided to visit Pine Grove the following week, to see everything in person and make the arrangements if everything felt right. As we planned, I felt a strange peace settling over me, the kind that had been elusive since Thomas passed. It was a crisp morning, and the air in Ava's house was filled with a mix of cardboard and anticipation as we packed my belongings. That's when the peace was shattered by James and Lisa barging in, papers in hand and fury in their eyes. "Mom, you've got to listen, this is serious." James was red-faced, waving documents like they were flags. I motioned for him to calm down. "James, take a breath and explain what's going on," I said, trying to keep the room from spinning into chaos. "It's Dad's loans, Mom. He took out loans for my wedding, the apartment, all secured against the house. And now, the bank wants their money." His voice was shrill, the panic clear in his eyes. Lisa chimed in, her voice shrill. "There's no money left, Eleanor. You and Ava played us. Now they want to take everything." I couldn't help but smile, not out of amusement, but because of the absurdity of it all. "Your father was a wise man, James. He invested in a nursing home for our future. Everything is in my name. As for the house, well, that's your inheritance now." James's face went from red to white. "You need to give up that nursing spot, give us the money. We need it to cover these debts." Lisa was nearly hysterical. I took out loans for my surgery to look good for James. You owe us that money to help. Ava stood beside me, her demeanor calm but firm. The debts aren't Mom's concern, James. She signed over the house to you. That was your choice. I looked at both of them, my voice steady. I think you should consider selling the apartment you got as a gift. It could cover your debts. No. We plan to rent it out, make some income. James spat back, his desperation palpable. I shrugged, feeling a weight lift as I finally let go of the burden. Well, that's your decision, James. But as for me, I'm done. The house, the debts, you wanted the inheritance, it's all yours now. James looked like he was about to explode, and Lisa was no better, screeching about her financial woes until Mike stepped in, his voice thunderous. Enough. You can't come here and threaten my family. Get out. Mike's presence was enough to push James and Lisa out the door, their threats and shouts fading as they left. Ava closed the door behind them, her hand resting on the knob for a moment as if to seal away the chaos. I let out a long breath, feeling the final ties of obligation fall away. Ava looked at me, a mixture of concern and relief in her eyes. Are you okay, Mom? I am, darling. More than okay, I assured her, feeling lighter than I had in years. I'm free of the house and the debts. Free of the constant demands. Your father's foresight gave me this freedom, and I'm going to enjoy it without guilt. We spent the rest of the day wrapping up my belongings, each item a memory, each box a step toward my new life. As I packed, I thought about Thomas, his last gift to me, freedom and peace. I was ready for the nursing home, ready for a community of my peers, ready to embrace whatever came next without the shadow of James's problems looming over me. Settling into the nursing home was like starting a new chapter of my life, one I never knew I needed. My apartment here at Pine Grove is more beautiful than I could have imagined. From my window, I can see the sprawling gardens, the trees swaying gently in the breeze, their leaves whispering secrets I'm now free to discover. It's funny, really, how life turns out. Just a few months ago, I was tangled up in family drama, worried sick about debts and inheritances. Now, I'm here, in this peaceful haven, hearing about the outside world as if it's a distant memory. One sunny afternoon, Ava came by for our usual walk in the park that borders the nursing home. These walks have become the highlight of my week. So, how are things back home? How's Mike? I asked as we strolled along the paved path, admiring the blooming flowers. Mike's great, Mom. He's really been a rock through all this. And we've got some news. I'm pregnant. Ava beamed, her face glowing with joy. My heart swelled with happiness. Oh, Ava, that's wonderful. I'm going to be a grandma. I hugged her, feeling an excitement I hadn't felt in ages. As we walked, we talked about her plans, about how she wanted to raise her child, and the laughter we'd share. It was a beautiful feeling, looking forward to life again. And what about James? Heard from him lately? I ventured gently, knowing that part of my heart was still tender where he was concerned. Ava sighed. Yeah, I heard from a mutual friend. He and Lisa sold the apartment and the house to cover their debts. After everything was paid off, Lisa left him. Now he's living in a small rental and had to finally get a job. Sounds like he's learning some hard lessons, I said, not without a pinch of sadness for the son I once held in my arms, thinking the world was his oyster. It's probably for the best, Mom. He's taking responsibility for himself now. It's what you always hoped for, right? Ava squeezed my hand as we paused to watch a pair of ducks glide across the pond. That's true, darling. I always did want him to stand on his own 2 feet. Maybe now he'll find his way, I replied, feeling a mix of relief and resignation. It was hard not to worry, but at least he was making his own path now. Ava changed the topic then, talking about the nursery she was planning, the colors and themes swirling in her creative mind. We laughed and planned, and for a while, I forgot all about the troubles of the past. Living in Pine Grove, I found a community that feels like family. We share stories, play games, and support each other. The staff here are wonderful, always making sure we're comfortable and cared for. It's more than I could have hoped for, and sometimes I catch myself wishing Thomas could see me now, happy, at peace, and about to be a grandmother,